following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
My name is Jasmine, and I am a recovering drug addict.
My name is Richie Farrell, aka the Old White Junkie.
And we are your hosts for Exit Team Nashua.
Our mission is to bring recovery into the living room.
Last year, over 72,000 Americans died of an accidental overdose.
That's almost 200 Americans every single day.
We will bring you guests with real-life experiences with addiction and recovery. Welcome to Exit Team Nashua. Hi, welcome to Exit Team Nashua. My name is Jasmine, and I am your host. Exit Team is a TV show where we take people with real-life experiences with addiction, and we bring them right into your living room. Bobby, very happy you're here today.
I'm happy you're not hitting me.
As always, it's always an honor to be in your presence. And I just want you to know that I really love you. So...
You always say that after you hit me. Feel love.
I'm excited for today's show.
Me too.
I know. So I get the honor and the privilege of setting up these shows, and so our guest today is Ryan, and Ryan is someone that I've kind of always looked up to in recovery, and someone that I followed for a little while now. So it's really cool that you're here on this show. It's awesome.
Glad to be here.
Yes, welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
What qualifies you to be on the Exit Team show?
That's a good question.
We're going to need more time.
Yeah, I mean, how much time do we have?
It all started in 6th grade.
Yeah, so when I was 10, actually that's kind of where, that's what would probably qualify me as my lived experience in recovery. And to be in recovery, I had to have an active addiction life as well. I actually got sober March 7th of 2008. And after multiple times of being going in and out of treatment and in and out of sobriety, I would go to multiple 12-step programs. And I would put some time together. Most of the time it would be like I would rush into putting external things in place. And that was always really important to me because I think that it was in active addiction, I was never somebody that put this bright life together and then crashed it all down. Yep. I just never put it together at all. I stole stuff from other people. I never lost anything. I never had anything to lose. Okay. So when I would get sober, I would rush around to try to put those things into place,
which makes sense because society puts so much emphasis on external things, let people know where you're at. When I know when I first got sober, people kept talking to me about this internal condition. I was like, it doesn't even make sense. I didn't even know what that meant. So.
Well, and I think that was probably one of the more profound things that I had not only learned but I had experienced was that if I turned around and I stopped looking to try to rush everything on the external to get right inside, that if I just really focused on doing some work myself internally, that most of the stuff that I would put together externally would happen naturally, and it kind of more the way that it was supposed to.
You wouldn't have to steal.
And it would last, right?
It would, of course it would.
Yeah. But that's things that come really, really quick usually don't stay.
No, or you just, it's that when that's the focus, they may stay. You may get them quickly, but then you're moving on to the next thing and the next thing, and eventually that momentum, just I'm gonna wear it out.
These new clothes are gonna make me happy. This car is gonna make me happy.
They're gonna sit in the corner.
Yeah.
They'll get dirty. Rust is gonna eat the car. Moths are gonna eat the clothes, and eventually they'll lose its shine, and eventually I'll be left with this feeling of something's not right. I can only deal with that for so long. And for me, it would always be around 3 months. I'm a short fuse guy. I'm not a long fuse guy. Okay. And so I would sit there and after a while, even though I had all this evidence on the table, I had a very colorful past. And I had a lot of evidence on the table that says that me using or drinking alcohol is a bad idea. And despite all the evidence on the table, at some point in time, my mind would say, it wasn't that bad.
It's going to be different.
If you could keep it to the weekend, If
Listen,
you could just keep it to the weekend.
you stayed sober for 3 months. You can be a weekend warrior.
Did I make
'Cause
too
you
big
can-
of a deal of this?
You can stop. You can obviously stop.
Yeah.
Alcoholics and drug addicts
Yeah.
can stop.
And so that would run its course every time. I've had periods of time where I've left, 12-step meetings with my family, went out to lunch, relapsed in their presence, the people that I've hurt the most, and stood up from the table, and then would walk out the door and just kind of go on my way for another 2.5 years, and then eventually I would come back to the recovery process. This time, March 7th of 2008, or March 6th of 2008, I attempted to take my own life. I just couldn't imagine my life staying on this planet the way that I was living.
Yeah.
And,
in that vicious cycle,
Yeah.
right?
it was just, there was no other way out
It's
to me.
always so
No.
painful.
Yeah.
There's
Or-
just no relief.
Or
from
I
it.
know there's a way.
Yeah.
But I just physically can't stop.
Yeah, and then observing everybody else doing it, and
Yeah.
me not being able to do it,
Yeah.
and disappointing yet another round of people, and another set of failures, and so the next day I woke up from that attempt, and the state of New Hampshire thought it was a good idea that I get sober,
Oh.
which was nice of them.
Yeah, that's kind of chill.
Yeah, so.
Good looks.
Well, and I got walked over to Keystone Hall, which was behind the clock towers.
Right here in
Yes.
Nashua.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Awesome.
Yeah, this was, just a little over 11 years ago, and that was really the start of everything. And I don't really know what the difference was. It was just as painful this time as it was last time.
Mhm.
So. Really, I think that one of the things that took place was timing. There was somebody that came, and they showed up for free. That was a pivotal kind of like, I thought counselors had to,
Yeah.
because they were paid to. I always thought your family kind of had to because they were obligated because they were your blood.
Yeah.
And this person showed up and started to try to help me for no other reason other than to help me. And that at that point in time stood out to me. There was also a lot more state-funded treatment at the time.
Yeah.
So I spent 45 days in Keystone Hall, and I got sent up to the Southeastern New Hampshire Services. And
Okay.
at the time, they had a 90-day residential inpatient
Yeah.
that was completely funded by the state. And then I spent 6 months in their really intensive halfway house. And this was probably the most intensive treatment that I'd ever been in,
Yeah.
best treatment that I'd ever been in.
I went through Southeastern New Hampshire Services when it was like the ARC Crisis Center, and then they had the Turning Point too.
Yeah.
And I was able to maintain a year of
Yeah.
sobriety. I mean, I eventually reverted back to old behaviors,
Sure.
so I relapsed. But yeah,
That was, I mean, that I think the biggest thing that especially nowadays with insurance companies being the way that they are, and shortening the days of care. Excuse me, but back then it was, next thing I knew, I'd been in treatment for 7 months.
right.
And then all of a sudden, by the time I graduated, I'd been in treatment for 9 months.
And you have a chance.
I have a real
I know.
chance. Yeah.
Insurance companies are like 2 weeks, you're good.
You're good. And
You're
it's just
like,
yeah,
the neurotransmitters are still misfiring up there.
I'm still detoxing.
Yeah. No. I'm
Right?
like, oh, detox, you're good. It's like, I just took my last sub like 8
Yeah.
hours ago.
And I haven't even stopped thinking about drugs since I got here.
Yeah.
So,
No. Like but sure. Yes.
Yeah.
I could go home.
Yep.
I'm gonna be perfectly fine. Don't worry about it.
absolutely. Yeah. So that was really, and then I stayed there. I moved out into the Seacoast. Also, part of that time was that I really dove deeply into my personal recovery program. I had done things this time in recovery that I'd never done before. For me personally, I really intensely worked a 12-step program, and really much more than going to 12-step meetings, but really diving deep into the 12-step work itself. And that was something that I hadn't really ever made it too far in. I don't even know that I would really have been too interested. Every time somebody would talk about the things that are contained within the 12-step recovery process, I just would either make fun of somebody, or I would make sure that there was a way that I didn't fit into it.
Or like, I don't really have to. I already did that basically.
No, I never made that. I'm not going to do that.
Ah.
That's for other people.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was a justifier.
No.
I basically did that already.
Yeah, I would be too honest to be able. Like, I just would sit there and say, like, this is for sheep. I don't think that this is going to be
Right.
for me.
I would
enough.
just character
Yeah.
assassinate everyone in the room.
He's
and-
not really happy. She's not really
No.
happy.
Oh, I thought everybody was a liar. Like somebody
yeah.
would get up and they would say like they've been sober for a year. Be like, it's not true. It's not
You're
true.
definitely huffing airplane
Yeah.
blue.
If we had 5 minutes, I can figure out why that's not true and where you're absolutely not sober. I didn't think that was ever possible. Because just nobody that I grew up with, none of the people that I grew up with, we didn't. Everything revolved around living a lifestyle like that.
Yeah.
So it was to suddenly be around people, even though I've been trying to get sober since I was 17. I would come in the doors and I would look out and I'd think to myself, I don't know that I've ever learned anything.
Yeah.
You know, like I'd feel like every single time I was here, I was really raw. I didn't want to be near anybody. I disliked everybody. I hated everybody, and I was really left alone. I mean, the first person to reach out to me used to tell me that people used to think I was like an end-stage AIDS patient, that I was dying. And I was like, that's the most offensive thing I think I've ever heard somebody. Like,
Yeah.
what is that? And he just said everybody would leave you alone. And I used to tell myself a story that nobody wanted to help me. And he said, you used to like snarl at people when they would come over. I'm like, really? And he says, yeah. Wow. Oh, okay.
I mean, it's like, kind of sounds like me.
I don't really
Maybe.
have a fair recollection of that time anyway, so
Yep.
if you say so. Yeah. And so I moved out to the Seacoast. I stayed up there into a phenomenal recovery community.
The Seacoast is great.
It's
Oh,
just,
yeah.
it
There's
was,
just something magical that
yeah,
happens out there.
there just really was. I mean, I stayed up there. I got connected to some of the best people that I've ever met in my life. Most of them I'm still connected to this day. And overall, like, it's just you're close to the beach, you're close to the lakes, you're close to the mountains, and it was all things that I started to dive. I just really started to expand. Even outside there's the traditional recovery process. I started to expand out and find out that there's so much out in the world that I just lived. I mean, most of my life had been between Nashua, Lawrence, Lowell, and Lynn, Massachusetts. That's as big as my world was.
Yeah.
And
so-
like for me, like my mental world was even smaller.
Yeah.
So till like, when you were talking and like you were sharing about like how painful like your addiction was, I was thinking about my healing process and like how and I was like, how did I ever like learn about the internal condition? And I remember it was like a feeling, like the awareness that like I was not my mind and like all those painful thoughts, and there's just so much outside of like there's so much you're talking about like your physical area, but like there's just so much outside of you too to connect with.
Yeah, and there's just so much like when you actually like get into and start to expand your world, you realize there's such a huge possibility for your life and you start to expand and touch into these places that you didn't, and it's almost like there's not enough time in the day.
Yeah.
You're like, wait a minute, you do what? That sounds kind of cool. Tell me about that.
It wasn't even a possibility.
No.
It was,
No.
I need to do whatever I need to do to
Yeah.
keep getting higher drunk.
Yeah.
And like, farthest I'm going to wake up in is Jersey.
You made it far.
That was gonna. Well,
No.
not in CT. It's
No,
not that
I
far.
was,
that's
I was
right.
like an
Yeah.
hour and a half away from Jersey.
Yeah.
Okay.
And nobody ever wants to wake up in Jersey.
No.
Not even
Yeah.
from Jersey.
Not even people. Bobby, you could really be offending someone right now. Okay. We love you, New Jersey.
Please
kidding.
call. I know you need help.
Just kidding. Yeah.
Okay.
So that was the. That really. That's where everything kind of took off for me, and I started going back to school, and I had friends that were always saying you should come get into the treatment field,
Yeah.
and so. God, it's going to be right around coming up on 10 years working in the substance abuse field in some way capacity, and I've just learned a ton being in it. I've got to work with some amazing people, and I get to serve a population of people that not a lot of people want to sign up for. Why are there not more recovery supports, and there's a lack of people to offer them is because it's a tough population of people to serve, and so not a lot of people want to sign up for yeah, I'm going to work with a really difficult population. It's just like, because if you're dealing with a guy like myself, which I'm
Apparently, you were
not,
snarling and growling at
Yeah.
people.
I'm not the best guy in treatment.
I don't think anybody really is the best person in treatment.
I
You'd
feel
be
like I was a
surprised.
really good person in treatment. Like if they told me to jump this last time around, I didn't even ask them how high. I was jumping as high as I could.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
I wasn't really.
Well, we're not surprised.
I would course correct well though, right?
Yeah.
So it's like that.
Yeah.
That's the piece that I think is important. So when they would show up and so like the place that I would go into, you would get pulled out of the room, and it was kind of like it was almost like a TC / 12-step
Okay.
place. That's what the way that it used to be.
Yeah.
And it was just really it was you be in like a community group, and if people weren't towing their weight, they would get pulled out. And so this the way that Southeastern was set up. You had the treatment center, you had the court, you had the jail, and the old folks home, the retirement community rather. And so it's all right there.
Yeah.
And so you'd look out your window and you'd see the jail. And most of us there were mandated, and so you would get pulled out, and the door would close, and you could hear the handcuffs go on somebody.
Yeah.
And all of us that were mandated would sit straight up.
Yeah.
And so when they would pull me in the room, and people would get discharged for far less than what some of the stuff. I mean, I would say some of the most wild things.
Yeah.
And everybody in the room would look at me like, and then the door would open. They'd say, "Ryan, can you come with me?" And I wonder what this is about. I didn't even have a clue that was offensive.
Yeah.
And they would pull me in the room, and my counselor would say, "You can't talk to people like that." Like, did you not hear them? How would you suggest that I talk to them? And he's like, like this, and he would show me.
Yeah.
And then he'd say, "I expect you to go back into the community and put it in practice." And I would, and come to find out afterward, it was they came to the realization that they didn't think I knew any better, and so that they just had to tell me, and I would go do better. And so and which I found extremely, like if I didn't go to a place like that, I don't know that I would have made it anywhere else, and I don't know if anybody would have taken the time to compassionately show me a different way. Because I probably wouldn't have figured it out on my own.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that was really kind of the piece of that I've always taken with me. And then so finding into treatment, and kind of to your point that you made, which is like people forget, especially people that work in treatment with lived experience, they forget often what they were like. They all of a sudden, the person that's sitting in front of them, their expectation is that they should be where they are today at day 4 or week 2.
They're not.
And they're not. That's just not where they are. And people forget that, and they lose the compassion, they lose the patience, and they have this false expectation that like they're not allowed to show up honestly the way that they are, the person that they bring to the table, and that you have to take the time to kind of help put some of that back together again.
See, I always get hopes up for the kids that are like that when they come in, that are all messed up.
Me too.
Because because seriously, it's like okay, you've hit some pain. B, you're being honest with me. You're not telling me what I want to hear. You're telling me what like you're actually thinking, and it's like cool. I can actually work with this, right? Like I can actually talk to you, and like I don't have to do the workaround.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like all right, cool. You got the honesty part. Let's work on everything else.
Right. Well, and just like so now the honesty comes on the table. What is the honesty? And then helping somebody sort through like what actually needs to change. Maybe what's a different approach? Okay, so this is honest for you, and I understand that. But what's a different way that you could possibly look at that, or bring that to a group setting? Because really, the portion of this is like the taking the recovery portion and putting it into action, and helping somebody kind of show up, or when they walk out the door, be a different person that walked in the door.
Yeah.
I think it's you can listen to people like sound great when they talk, and then you watch what they do, and you're like, did you miss something?
Yeah.
Like what just happened? And you can see that with people that have been in recovery for a long time.
Yeah.
Same thing. They know all the right things to say, but like when it comes to doing it, they can't get themselves out of a paper bag. And it's just like I think that's the most important part, is to be able to help somebody actually change some of their actions so that their life ends up having a richer quality to it.
Yeah, they could be somebody of integrity, right? Somebody that does what they say.
Absolutely.
Does what they do.
There's a question for you. Ryan, who is your biggest influence in getting sober?
Biggest influence in getting sober. I would say that the biggest influence in getting sober, I don't know about, well, as weird as this is to say, my PO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not weird at all.
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
think that's weird at all.
So there's two people. I mean, I was already sober, but my first sponsor, Kent, he just saved my life. And then I had my PO, when I went in to turn myself in, he was going to mandate that I serve my maximum sentence, which was 5 years in Concord State Prison. And the worst part is that, to admit this, is that I never have been charged with a felony in my life, but I'd failed at probation for not being able to pass a clean urine, and I would always fail the drug test, and so I spent more time incarcerated over failed drug tests than I ever did over arrests. And I went in, and he asked me to serve my maximum sentence, or not asked me, he told me that was what was going to happen. And,
You okay with doing 5 years upstate?
So, well, interestingly enough, after the court counselor came in, he had said, like, what we'd like to see you actually try to get sober, and and I thought, I don't want to do that.
I'd rather go to jail.
I'd rather go to prison.
Yeah.
Right.
And so he came in and he took it off the table. And so, and he just said, like, we're going to walk you over. And he did. And then afterward, when I've called to thank him, he's never returned my call.
Do you know what's so cool? So when I first found my way to recovery, I had stayed sober for that year and then I relapsed. But
Sure.
I had a probation officer who mandated me to treatment, and I begged her to send me back to jail because I had gotten so comfortable in jail, and she mandated me to Southeastern.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I found my way to
Yeah.
recovery. And like, I stayed sober for that year, and I relapsed, and my relapse was very short, but like, because of that year, I knew right where to go.
Sure.
You know, that's
Yeah.
just really cool that we
Yeah.
have like the exact, almost
Oh,
the
yeah.
same experience with being
Yeah.
mandated to the same
Yeah,
treatment
it
center.
saved my life. Like, I
Yeah.
literally would have chose to go sit there, and who knows. And my rationale to him was, I said, if I go, I'll spend about a little over 3.5 years. I'll max out, and I won't be on probation anymore, and so I won't have to fail with you anymore.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, we're not going to do that.
He saved your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's almost like insane thinking or something.
You think?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's super uncommon.
But I thought I deserved to be there.
Yeah.
And I thought it was the best at the time. It was the best place to go. It was after an extreme, what I thought was the solution the night before that didn't work. It was the next best thing that was presented to me.
It's so crazy how cool life gets.
I know. I know.
Like, your best thinking and like what you thought you deserved was to sit in a jail, and like you have like a pretty awesome life from what I see, and like you help a lot of people, and like, I don't know. I'm actually, for those of you, we haven't even talked about this yet. Check out people. My shirt. Live Free.
They're everywhere.
Yes, they are. They're a hot commodity if you'd like to get one. What is Live Free?
So Live Free Structured Sober Living got started in 2015, and it was geared toward having a lower cost, a lot more services, and at the time it was an extended care program, and for the folks in the state of New Hampshire, and so that had taken place. That program was in full swing till 2016, where then opened the clinical services that was attached to it, and then as of recently, I've opened a second location that was in Keene, New Hampshire.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and
So
it was geared toward to turn around and working with the town of Keene to be able to offer the service. And doing it at a cost that was low enough to the person. Families are burnt out with financially at this point. There's just we're at this place right now where we're with recidivism into the treatment process, where it's just people are coming and going, and so that there's not a lot of there's not finances left for treatment, and so it was set up so that it would be able to be paid for by the person that's there. And what we've done now is that we've had such success at the program, we've been able to lower the barrier to get in. Yeah, so that it's like, it's half the cost just to get in the door.
Have you been out there?
No.
It's phenomenal. I was blown away by how nice
Keene?
it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's like,
I'll have to come by.
it truly sets the men up for success, and it's affordable. It's like,
incredible.
it's for the services and what's provided there, that's like high-end sober living, and,
Yeah.
and it's at an affordable price
Yeah.
where people can actually
And
afford
that's
to
what there
go.
needs to be more of.
Right.
More affordable sober living.
Yeah.
It's so
Because
beautiful.
I know, at least in my experience, I needed that.
Yeah.
And how great, because I don't think there's a ton of resources in Keene either, is there?
No, there's not
There's,
much of anything.
There's
There's
Phoenix
the
House.
college.
There's Phoenix House, Dublin, Phoenix House, Keene, and then you have Brattleboro Retreat that's close by.
Yeah.
You have Cheshire Medical, which is one of they offer one of the doors for the hub and spoke.
Yep.
They're
They're great at that hub
yeah.
too. The Keene hub
Oh,
is
yeah.
folks great.
There's the Keene Serenity Center, which is an RCO, and that's really kind of what is in Keene itself. And but the impressive thing is what the town of Keene itself has done. They've really just rallied around the supports and tried to make it easier and not harder,
That's incredible.
which is really
Yeah.
cool. And so they. Especially with the building that I have, it's a 10,000 square foot facility. It's got 6 2-bedroom apartments. There's only 4 people per apartment, and then it's on-site laundry rooms. There's offices for the staff that's on site, and group rooms. I mean, it's really just a nice. You step out and there's the mountains right there, and then you're a mile out from downtown Keene.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so
You
it's
have
a
to
great
go see
it's a
it.
great location.
He can describe how beautiful it is, but it's when you
Yeah.
see it, you really
It's nice.
experience how beautiful it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the show flies by.
Yeah.
We didn't even talk about all these things that I had planned, because you're the executive director for Avenues Recovery,
Recovery, yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
So we'll have to have a second show
Sure.
where we can discuss that.
Yeah.
So I
A lot
do,
of two-parters.
huh?
A lot of two-parters lately.
I know. We just the shows are really good. We have
Yeah.
phenomenal guests. So for anyone that's struggling, we have your information up on the screen, but I want you to be able to give people like contact numbers. How do people get a hold of you? Like, what should people do to contact you?
Sure. I mean, they can reach myself, anytime with the direct line to Live Free. It's 877-932-6757. It rings to my phone, and if not to me, it just leaves a voicemail.
Okay.
And I typically always answer that number.
Okay.
And I have there's a lot of families, a lot of different people that reach out for resources. The majority of the resources are people that reach out for resources are going to end up in other people's facilities.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just important to connect people to where they need to go.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's beautiful.
That's
So,
awesome.
anyone struggling, reach out to Ryan for sure. All of his contact information is that's mine and Bobby's screen, but if you just rewind it a second,
Or
all
them,
or
you know?
you
Yeah,
reach
you
out
reach
to
out
us.
to any
Yeah,
of
but
us.
we're here every show. This is your show. This is about you.
Yeah, this is
Everything's about you.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you
Absolutely.
guys for watching. The show's been great. Bobby, thank you. I love you and I appreciate you.
You didn't hurt me that time, so it's cool.
Okay.
And also, it ended like 20 seconds ago.
Thanks. Thank you guys. Bye.
You did good.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.